Danica Connors is back on the show today to talk about Imbolc. Danica has been on the show a few times talking about different Wiccan holidays and how to recognize these traditions and celebrations. So today we're transitioning into Imbolc, which is the birth of spring. So Danica is going to talk about the ways that we can recognize this beautiful time of the year, how we can embrace the journey into our spring, and some of the rituals and beauty around this. Always love Danica being on the show. Deeply grateful and honored for her presence and for her information. Hope you get something out of the talk. We'll see you on the other side. But first, a message from our sponsor. Our healing journey can be difficult and might feel lonely at times. That's why I love sound baths. When we can get together in a community, we intrinsically support and feel supported by others. And that combined energy can help us go deeper into our own healing journeys. And all you have to do is just lay there for 1 hour and listen to beautiful healing sounds. I'm a sound healing practitioner, and I hold sound baths on a regular basis in the greater Seattle area. You can find my next sound baths on my website at adamrealhealing.com. That's Adam, A-D-A-M, Real, R-I-E-H-L, Healing, H-E-A-L-I-N-G.com. adamrealhealing.com. Your healing is worth your time. And now an uninterrupted podcast with Danica Connors. Right, welcome back to our show. Today I'm joined again by my good friend, Miss Danica Connors. Danica has been on the show numerous times now and will continue to be on the show. One of the goals that we have with these repeated visits from Danica is to talk to us about the pagan holidays and the rituals and celebrations around that. So far, we've gone through Samhain, Yule, winter solstice.
That's Yule, yeah.
Yep, right. And then, so now we are working our way towards Imbolc. And I'm very excited to have you here. I admittedly don't know a lot about these holidays, which is, again, one of the reasons why I have Danica here to kind of give me the firsthand, because I can look at Wikipedia, I can read articles, but I love hearing from somebody that has the passion, the knowledge, the desire, and that's, I mean, you in a nutshell. You're passionate, you're knowledgeable, you have desires to, like, share all this stuff. But before I turn it over to Danica and we really get into this, you shared something with me just before we hit record, and take this with a grain of salt. I like it a lot. So Danica has been practicing Wicca for a number of years, and so recognizes as a Wiccan practitioner. But also within the past years, she started to study Druidism, and she just dropped this term on me. Now she is a Wiccan and a Druid, and so she recognizes as wicked. And that makes me so goddamn happy. And so if you have issues with that, I apologize, because that tickles me in a special place. I love the etymology of things. And when I know like Wiccan and Druid and put together as wicked, I'm like, that makes me smile. So Danica, thank you for being here. Always a pleasure to have you. That's my favorite thing for the week so far.
Oh, thank you, Adam. And it's funny when I think about it. It's like there are going to be some Wiccans who are like, you can't do that, right. And then there are going to be some Druids who are like, but mostly Druids will be like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. So I was sitting around going, how do I combine those? And I was like, Dricka didn't quite work for me, but when I landed on Wicked, I was like, I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Totally okay with that. So that no matter what, that at least opens, somebody's going to go, a what?
Yeah.
Which allows, a moment of connection and education and humor, which you put those three things in the same place when it comes to spirituality, I am all fucking in.
Yeah, so. Right, 100%, 100%. We got to start with that curiosity, though. Something sparks the curiosity of like, wait a minute, I don't know if that lands with me. And then you look into it like, okay, then you figure out how you feel about it.
Yeah. This is so funny.
Love it. Well, so Imbolc is the next up on our list of celebrations. Mm-hmm. And again, I pledge ignorance about this, but I do know a tad bit. And so with Imbolc, it is more or less the transition into spring. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. The Saint Brigid is the saint that is recognized with this celebration in Ireland's recognition. And you would mention three things that are recognized with this, and it really landed with me when I read it too. And it might be a little bit different, but basically fire, fertility, and poetry.
Oh, so and we'll get into that, but that is so the goddess Brigid basically was incorporated when Christianity came into Ireland. And she was such a powerful goddess figure. I mean, all over the Celtic lands, such a powerful figure that they could not do anything to get rid of her. So they completely incorporated her as a saint, and that's Saint Brigid.
Okay.
And she is still very, very celebrated to this day.
Okay.
When I went to Ireland, there is there's a beautiful facility that's more of a Christian base that is called Solas Brigid that keeps her flame alive, because way back when, the priestesses kept her ever living flame. Just tended it and never went out.
Okay.
When I went there, there's this entire beautiful area that has the Well of Brigid, and she's there, and you see the little red clooty prayer ties tied to the trees, and she's very, 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 very present. So, if you're talking about more of like an Irish pronunciation, it's Brigid, and that's the goddess.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, I have exercised my knowledge in Imbolc now.
and let's tweak it a bit too. Imbolc is definitely the American way of saying it. You take out the B.
Imbolc.
It's Imbolc.
Imbolc.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Imbolc,
all right.
because it actually means, there's a couple of translations around it. It's ewe's milk.
Oh, like a goat?
Because the sheep, it's part of, so in this time frame, winter is still very, very present. So sometimes it's really hard to see the fact that spring is coming back. And one of the hints was that it's the birthing of the lambs. It's the lambing season. So when the ewes were lactating.
Okay, all right.
So Imbolc.
Yeah.
But also it means in the belly. It's the first fetal stirrings in the womb of the goddess, in the womb of the earth.
Well, it's beautiful because, like you said, especially in February in Europe, it's still very much winter. And to me, looking at Yule and solstice, winter solstice, it's the darkest day of the year, right? But it's the knowledge that it's gonna be brighter tomorrow. And it's the knowledge in February that it's going to get a little bit warmer and we're going to see a little bit more of the sun. So it's the knowing. It's that intrinsic knowing. You don't have to see it. Like in the West, spring is like March, April, when we can see and feel the sun and see the rain coming in and know that it's washing it away, and we will. But for me, this is that intrinsic, that deep knowledge, that knowing of like, we're still cold as shit, but we know that it's turning. We know that there's going to be life around the corner. We know that we can almost plant seeds again and start to see that start to come up to fruition.
Yeah, because Yule, in the darkest night of the year, is only the inception of the light. It's a concept. You don't know. We don't see it.
Yeah.
It's something deep within that just kind of flicks on, right? And during Imbolc, it's more about light than heat.
Okay.
Right? We do see, even with winter knocking hard still at our door in many parts of the country, in the world, the light is increasing. That's what you can see.
Yeah.
We're getting a hair more. The process of the light is coming back. The days are slightly longer. We can actually see that.
Yeah.
So it's more light than heat.
Okay.
And that also comes into, how, with Wicca, it's not just tapping into what's happening in the season, it's how we apply it to our lives and how it's about our personal progression as a human, right? So at this time of year, we start working with what are the things that are birthing within us that are super, super new and super, super vulnerable. And we don't have any proof. There's no proof.
Yeah.
And how do we have hope when things like winter is still here? You struggle. February can be the hardest month.
Yeah.
And we lose hope. How do you protect that little flame that was conceived at Yule and is barely growing and doesn't have the strength to withstand the cold and the storms and the wind? Even within you, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
So it's, possibilities and how to feed them are important at this time too.
That's beautiful. And it's, it makes me, I used to think in my more ignorant days, because I still pledge ignorance, but I used to be more ignorant.
Don't we all? We better.
Yeah, totally, right? Yeah, I ain't got shit figured out. Please
we
tell me.
better pledge I mean, at least some ignorance, or then we're just sitting in arrogance, and that's a whole other thing.
And it's these intrinsic, almost the intuitive moments that we look back at. These are our ancient ancestors, and for me, I used to wonder, like, how in the hell do you recognize that, right? How do you feel that? I remember the first time I thought about that was when I heard that, let's say, I think it was the Mayans had a map of the stars. I'm like, how in the hell do they figure that out? In my head at that point in time, decades ago, there were, again, ignorance, I'll pledge ignorance, but an indigenous group of people that don't have technology, in my head, right? Didn't have technology, that all they were doing is sacrificing and looking at the sky. Like, how do you figure that shit out? And then I remember one day in a meditation, I don't know why this came up to me, but that kind of idea popped in my head. And this is after I finally started to sit and meditate and start to quiet my mind a little bit. And I have a good friend of mine, Robin, that co-hosts another podcast that I do. And he's like a well of sports information. Like, knows the pitchers and the stats and the catches and the fucking touchdowns, all the shit from different sports, different eras, different decades, all the shit. And it hit me. I'm like, well, humans have a really interesting way of accepting knowledge patterns and putting it together. And if you take out all the external stimuli that we have in this current world, like books, Netflix, fucking internet, all the things that take us away from our actual intrinsic knowledge of self. And all I have to do at night for decades is look at the sky, and that's my quote unquote Netflix. You goddamn right, I'm going to figure it out. If my friend Robin can tell me who struck out Sandy Koufax in the 1972 World Series and blah, 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 I can, in my head, rationalize that an indigenous group of people can look at the sky over and over again and start to see patterns.
In the with humans, pattern recognition equals survival.
Right. That's the way our brain works, right? And that's one of the beautiful things about our brain, and also the treacherous things about our brain, is that it works in patterns. And if your pattern is used to you talking very negatively about yourself or seeing the world in a very disparaging way, that pattern is going to keep manifesting itself in front of you, whether you recognize it or not. So,
that's true.
The damn human brain.
I know. It is what it is. It's great, though.
It is.
It's really, really great.
It is.
I think that, being a part, also recognizing the bigger pattern of things. And that's what I like so much about the Wheel of the Year.
Yeah.
Is recognizing that as beings, we are inherently a part. We are nature. Mm-hmm. We forget that quite a bit.
Well, it's defined as the Webster's Dictionary.
Nature. Yeah.
I don't know if we've shared this before.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Yeah.
Others, yeah. Everything that is created outside of man, basically. It's like, no. We are nature. We're not separate from it. We are right in there with it.
And we are a part of this pattern.
Right.
And it helps you as you go through. You will touch base with every single one of the big 8 festivals. Those parts of your life you will live through over and over and over again. And being a part of this overall pattern lets you know that it's ever changing. It's always moving into the other phases no matter what. And that is really healing. Healing to know that you're not stuck in one place forever, but also to know that you are a part of an inherent pattern that this gorgeous planet has been rolling through since its inception.
Right.
So, that sometimes it helps me feel a little less small. Also, it helps me remember my humility, to not be so big.
Right.
So it ends up creating a balance for me, and also a real astounding feeling of being home, feeling like I'm held by divinity. Yeah. I'm held by whatever your sense of spirituality is, but mainly I'm held by this earth, which is my mother.
Right.
And I am held by her, and it is my job as a pagan to do as much as I physically can to hold her back.
It's beautiful. Since we started talking, and I'm still not fully embracing the wheel of life, but through our conversations and the recognition that you've bestowed upon me, it adds a little continuity to my life. I remember the first time somebody talked to me about eating with the seasons. It seemed so foreign. I'm like, no, I like blueberries all year round. Like, get effed. I'm going to eat blueberries all year round. But when we can really embrace that, this fruit or vegetable blossoms at this time because of this reason, and because of that it links up with your physiology, and that's going to benefit you, and when that dies off, it's for a reason, and that something else will take its place, and hey, guess what, now you have carrots to eat. Like, cool, carrots are great, they're orange and sweet, I love that, but it adds this like fluidity. And we all have ancient DNA within us, and all of our ancient ones probably practiced in some way these rituals, these holidays, these celebrations. And so it's almost like feeling at home again, and it just lands for me in a different way than our Western holidays, like Christmas or Halloween or Valentine's, like the made up holidays. It adds a little bit more of familiarity, I think, to the path of life.
Valentine's has a pagan history,
right? Yes.
All of these things have, it was basically based on Lupercalia, which happened in Rome right at around Imbolc. Oh. It is one of the big holidays around this thing, and it was, the Latin of wolf is lupus, and they mate for life.
Okay.
Right. So we're talking, and there's also connections between the wolf and Brigid, and there's all these things that kind of, and Lupercalia was this, people ran around dressed as Pan, like whipping people for fertility rights and all this like astounding, amazing things, right? As certain bits of fertility and life awoke back up again. Okay. But we have this kind of, this whole background of there's also St. Valentine, and the idea of him writing a letter to his last love as he was literally incarcerated on his way to dying. I mean, there are all these things, but Valentine's connects back to Lupercalia. Okay. Lupercalia is a festival of returning light and fertility right at this time. So we can track so many of these things when we're like, oh, it's just the same thing with a twist. Right. It is. Yep. So much of we all have pagan ancestry, all of us, because there were hundreds of years of paganism pre-Christianity. Yep. Across the globe. Right? So we do have history, and it's just fascinating to really dig into it historically and go, oh, that's where that came from. Oh, that's where that came from. And it happens constantly, and it's fun. It's really fun for, we pagans who are like, oh, there that is. Yeah,
that's how that showed up. Okay, got it.
That's, and it's not even, sure, there's a bit of you inside that's like, we had that. But in actuality, it's more about, no, this is a pattern that's been just going on, and it changes to adapt to society. It's not necessarily even to say it's wrong. It's just that here in America, it is adapted to fit basically a Christian on the whole, but it's changing now. It's really, really changing, right? Yeah. But a capitalist white society. Yeah. Yeah. So stuff changed to fit that. Right. Buy a lot of Valentine's Day cards, chocolates, and make sure you spend. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm. But whatever you do, don't do the ritual that actually had to do with it in the first place, because, that has nothing to do with money.
Yeah, and that's hooey. That's all woo-woo stuff, Mm-hmm. So we only want to spend the money and support the capitalistic god. We don't want to support the other gods. Right. Yeah.
Right. So, but I just find it funny that it never really goes away. Yeah. It just changes.
Grows and changes and adapts, and there you go.
Yeah.
It's almost like a virus.
Well, yes, you could say that.
Yeah, in a good way. I think viruses actually get a bad rep.
Yeah.
There's a Dr. Zach Bush I listen to now that talks about how viruses are just packets of information.
Yeah.
Right, and the packets of information get carried around the world as the world needs them, and they land on whatever they land on, and either the body accepts it or doesn't. But it's the body's choice to accept it or not. Right? We might not be conscious of that awareness, but it's still an awareness. So yeah, I love that. Okay, so Imbolc.
Yes.
We start celebrating in February.
Yeah, so it's one of those, the in-between on the Wheel of the Year.
Okay.
They are the Celtic-driven festivals.
Okay.
And they usually go from the day before to the day after, so you usually have 2 days from dusk through to dusk the next day. So it's usually February 1st through February 2nd.
Is dusk... so for me, dusk is one of those like magical hours.
Oh yeah, the in between.
Yeah, it's like where the light is kind of dim, it's kind of cloudy. It's believed that a lot of the spiritual beings start to come out, like your little fairies and nymphs and all these things start to frolic around, and dusk and dawn and the in-betweens. Is that kind of leading into why there's like this dusk dawn kind of start time? And
well, we talked, I think, a little bit about it at Samhain, is the fact that for many of the Celts, the day started at dusk, not dawn.
That's right. I do remember us talking about that.
So that's mainly why it goes from one day to the next day, because dusk to dusk, technically, in our calendar, incorporates 2 days.
Yeah. Okay. Right on.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's the first and the second.
Okay.
And sometimes, technically, really, that's kind of how we've landed on it at this calendar. Usually, it was the new moon closest to this time, which we just
passed, right?
And that, in many calendars, lunar Imbolc.
Okay.
On that day.
All right.
And it's a new moon because it's the beginning. I love the concept of this is the time of the first fetal stirrings of spring.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. It's that first time where, for women who have been pregnant, it's that first time you feel that little shift, that little flutter. That's even before the first kick, way before the first kick, right? It's the fluttering. It's the great, this is the time of the awakening. Right? Yeah. I love that concept.
Yeah.
It's not fully birthed. This is the awakening time when things are feeling that pull to life, that pull that just makes you move and shift and change and want and need. And those stirrings happen before you do anything about it. And they're instinctual.
Yeah.
And they're deep, deep within you. So these are you may do nothing with those stirrings. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the other thing, is thinking about what that is for yourself and how you're going to react to them. But right now, even in my window box, there are these teeny tiny shoots of yarrow coming up all over the place. And I went, hello, Imbolc. Hello. How are you? Uh-huh. So lovely to see you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Kind of thing. So, we're celebrating the beginning of the stirring of spring. We celebrate the light returning, right? Because technically, out of all of the 8 festivals, it is the one most associated with the goddess.
Oh, okay.
Right? But I tend to, even in my own practice, I tend to have them both in there in most cases as much as I can. But Imbolc is the goddess in many traditions, where summer solstice is the god, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
But it depends upon, what your form of paganism is. That might shift or change or however it is. And that's what I love about being able to celebrate this stuff. This basic bones, do what you want. Mm-hmm. Really. But this is the time when, in the Eleusinian mysteries, in the great myth of Demeter and Persephone, right, in Greece, this was the time when Persephone returned from the underworld to the surface of the earth. And Demeter, who was the mother goddess of the earth, in her joy allowed the earth to bloom again. Right?
Yeah.
This is the time for Brigid to step back out upon the land and spread her light in order to wake everything back up.
Okay.
The symbol is water and fire out of the womb, right? This is where we're getting very goddess and female-oriented things. It is out of the womb, the waters of life, that the fire of consciousness and birth and life comes out of, right? So again, another very feminine moment.
Yeah.
When children, the birth of offspring. Brigid protected children, you know. So offspring being born into this world and the blessings of children, big for this time as well. But, you know, Brigid is a goddess of fire and water. But she was a triple goddess too. She also was the earth mother and the protector of the hearth fires as well. So we have this the sympathetic magic of asking her to come back and walk across and wake up us, the planet, everything, you know. But again, once again, it's more about light than heat.
Right.
So there's a lot against sympathetic magic of candles. This time by Christianity was called Candlemas.
Okay.
This was the time when Jesus as a baby, I think something like 40 days old, was presented into the temples. This is the time where the Virgin Goddess was the Virgin Mary was purified.
Okay.
We all know what virgin means now. We went over that last one.
Yes, we did.
But it's Candlemas.
Yeah.
Processions of people with lit candles in multiple cultures for multiple reasons. That's just magic that brings the light back.
Yeah.
It's like a magnet.
Yeah.
You know?
There is something to that, you know. I think there's I've been reading about this a bit, but it's the combined consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And it's the combined belief, right? When we all, or when there's like a mass of people that believe in a thing, it changes the energy of how that is received, and it adds to the actuality of that belief. And you know, again, like in those days where we were more in touch with ourselves, with nature, with the world, with earth, with the spirits and all that things, there is like this intrinsic knowledge that can't be really bucked, right? It's like, I feel this, I know this, you know, and when you have that many people that have that similar kind of mindset and are still showing up with their candles, showing up for these ceremonies and these rituals, it adds to the acceptance of what is happening in that realm, and it allows for that to be, instead of this, you know, questioning, no, I don't feel that, you shouldn't feel that either, this isn't really real, this is all hooey, blah, 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 you know, and then that narrative starts to get more out there, and it kind of dims the light of the magic a little bit.
Yeah. And but one of the things I also like is, you know, for people who are very science-based and are atheists and all that stuff, I'm like, great. When you look outside, what is waking up? Outside, you, as a scientist, can look at those shoots.
Right.
You don't have to associate that with divinity in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But honoring that as something special and unique, that's all we're doing.
Yeah.
That is it.
Okay.
Really. And you don't have to attribute it to a god or a goddess or divinity or whatever it is. Whatever, if that's great, but it's still special. And it still repeats itself every year.
Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good way to look at it. It's like just honoring the fact of this, right? Even if you have your science-based knowledge of it, honor the fact that, hey, we're growing shit again. There's light out. It's going to get warmer. This is great, right? Let's embrace this while we can, because we know in 3 or 4 months it's going to get cold again, and things are going to start dying off, and we go back into our internal spaces. And it's that, I love that. You know, take the mystical, take the you know, the intuition out of it, and just look at the actual facts in front of you.
Yeah, if that's how you want to go. Then there's somebody like me, and I'm like, oh no, that's Brigid walking
Right.
straight across the
Exactly.
There we go. You know, and so it makes room for wherever you are with it.
Yeah.
There's no way to get around. You're going to acknowledge what's happening. And because in reality, these 8 festivals are agricultural festivals. They are based on what is happening so that we can grow, survive, be a part of it. But they were agricultural festivals.
Right.
That's something to think about. We and with Imbolc, there were many things because of this light returning that we kind of worked with. Like, it's also a time of initiation.
Okay.
Like, we know the concept of initiation, your beginning. But in spiritual traditions, initiations are huge.
Right.
They are full on, mind-blowing, or, no, they're always mind-blowing, no matter how dramatic or quiet they actually are. But initiations are the time where you make vows and commitments to your spirituality.
Okay.
Or to whatever it is that it should be. But initiations deal with moments of testing and challenge and doubt and all of these things. And what do you do with it? And what are you really committed to? Right? So initiations and renewal of vows, big thing at this time too. If you are very drawn to working with a specific god or goddess, right? If you do something like make a vow around this time, please understand, this is not an American vow. You can't just get a lawyer and back out.
I got a question with that. I love that, by the way. But so we're making these vows, right? And to me, that makes sense, right? We're changing the seasons. This is where things start to get planted so they grow, right? So that all makes sense to me. And I understand this is probably a Western thing we've fallen into, but is this the reason why a lot of New Year's resolutions fail? Is because we make them in the wrong time of the year with the wrong kind of intention behind it? Like, we're not moving with the flow of the world, right? Because the New Year's resolutions, January 1st, we're just cresting past solstice. We're just getting to a point to where there's light, but it's still not safe to plant things because the ground's still frozen.
It's risky.
Right.
It's really risky right now.
Are we kind of setting ourselves up for failure by setting our intentions in the wrong time of the year and then creating these stories and beating ourselves up about not fulfilling this intention when the intention shouldn't have been set anyways? It wasn't the quote unquote. I mean, I guess there's no wrong time. Today could be an intention, right? Today, tomorrow, I can set an intention for being whatever. But we do this as a mass scale and we have this delineated kind of day to start this stuff. Do you feel any kind of like...
I don't think there's any appropriate time. I think whenever you choose to make a vow is great. Doing vows during times of burgeoning beginnings, you do have some energy behind it to support you. At least that's what I work with. Right. I mean, however, whether you get through and hold to your vows and promises, that's another thing. That's personal. How you choose to do that or not, what your vow is, what tools do you have to make sure you're doing checks and balances as to where you are in those vows, and how important that vow actually is.
Right.
Once you actually, come to terms with what, my vows as a Wiccan were vows for this lifetime. And, really good teachers during those vows, they're like, please understand, once you do this, there is no way to go back through that door, ever.
Yeah.
And Americans are just used to being able to get out of anything whenever they need to.
Yes.
So, please understand that if you initiate or create vows around Imbolc, it's a much bigger thing than you think.
Yeah. I had my own experience with that recently, and it's one of those careful what you ask for kind of things, just same as what you're talking about. And, I've, in my personal journey through life, I've been working on my stories, right? The stories I tell myself, I'm very aware of them now. And in this last maybe 2 months, I've just kind of experienced these kind of like bouts of depression and And this kind of like chaoticness in my head where I feel so connected to everything at times, and then I feel completely disassociated. And I feel like I'm so like done with the energies in my body that no longer serve me. I feel like I'm going to throw up at any point in time, right? And it's like this very just kind of tumultuous feeling inside my body right now. And I got to a breaking point a couple weeks ago and sat down in meditation. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on? Like, I called all my guys. I'm like, I don't know what I need, but I need help. I need help. This is dumb. I'm worse off than I ever was before I started this journey, when I was still doing drugs and drinking all the time. I feel like I'm worse off than I was then, right? And I basically just had this breakdown, and I sat there after I was done pleading, and I just took a couple breaths, and the first thing that kind of came to my head was, careful what you ask for, because you've been asking to be connected. You've been asking to do this work. You've been asking to find your path. You've been asking. This is your answer. You got to clear the shit out. I'm like, fuck, I'm doing this to myself. But at the same time, like, as much as like that first ping of like, oh God, I did this myself. I'm like, oh no, I did this for myself. Like, I asked for this. I need like to unravel this shit so I can move forward into my path, because I know that there's a bigger purpose for me in this world than just when my past was drinking and working in restaurants and doing that shit, right? It served a purpose. It's great. But now I've asked for a clearer path. I've asked for more purpose. I've asked for understandings. And hey, guess what? It's not always fucking rainbows and sunshines. That shit fucking hurts sometimes, because we got to get through the shit that we've built up so we can see the pureness inside of us. So that to me is like, like yeah, careful what you ask for, because it's going to come. Right. And when you're ready for it, or you're not ready for it, doesn't matter. It's going to come. Right.
And it usually, you think through it. And believe me, we're human. We think through all the pros and cons.
I made a list.
Would I do this? Would I not? But then it comes in a way that you could never have expected. And it is realer than anything I can't, the level of what has happened to me since my own initiations, and every time I look back on there's this part of you that goes, I didn't ask for that.
Yeah, right.
That's not what I meant.
Let me clarify first.
I didn't. And you just feel the gods smiling from ear to ear, going, we know, honey. We knew when you took the vow. Right? And sometimes your teachers, as teachers, we know. And that's part of the wisdom of getting older.
It really is.
Is knowing that all the enthusiasm of the young is the enthusiasm. It is going to come at you in ways that you never expect, in ways that are more joyous, in ways that are far more painful.
Yeah.
It's not going to be controlled, no matter what you think. And you sit back, and there's a part of you, at least now, me in my 50s, and there are people in their 80s looking at me going, "You're just a baby."
I know, right? Yeah.
Now I'm looking at people in their 30s going, "You're just a baby," right? But we look and we go, "Oh, you have no idea what's coming,"
right? And
thank goodness, because then you wouldn't go.
Right? Yeah. I've found so much peace and solace in the confusion of my 40s, and love it so much, because there's so much knowledge that comes with that. And I think it might be masked as confusion, but it's really just shaking up what I thought I knew. So that could be the confusion I feel when there's real information now coming in that goes through my ego, bypasses it, doesn't get filtered through my ego, and is read and understood by clear consciousness. And it's a whole other ballgame with that.
It really, really is.
Yeah.
Swinging back, I was just thinking of the concept of those New Year promises and all those things. I think we put too much pressure on ourselves, right? Imbolc is not the time to do. Imbolc is time to sit still with the stirrings. Just wait.
That's hard.
Wait and feel what is stirring in you. And it's not good and it's not bad. It just is.
Yeah.
But it's enough. It doesn't have to be more. You don't have to do.
Right.
It is the awakening. You know, we would all prefer when we wake up in the morning to open our eyes and allow for awakening, but we don't. Mm-hmm. The alarm goes off and we hit the ground and we run.
We do.
It's very, very American.
Right.
Imbolc is about how you wake up on your day off. You're waking up. Don't do more because then you're going to break something. You haven't stretched yet.
Right, yes,
which
exactly.
Means you might tweak something out. And it's like, no, tweak something out. It's like, you gotta... Imbolc is about getting excited because something's coming.
Yeah.
You know? I love that concept. I wrote a poem that I like to put in the Imbolc rituals. You know, poetry. You know, Brigid is a triple goddess of healing, smithcraft, and poetry. Right. So poetry at this time, write a poem. You want to celebrate Imbolc. I don't care if you think you're a poet. I don't care. Write some poetry.
I love writing haikus.
Write whatever comes out and offer it to Brigid on this day. Right?
Yeah.
Sing a song, play a piece of music.
Yeah.
But something of your, try to make it of your creation. And believe me, there are poets who are far better than me and do this far better than I do. And their writing inspires me. But there is something in Druidism called Awen.
Okay.
And it is the energy of creativity and inspiration that flows through all, that comes through the gods in reality and comes through you to create in this lifetime.
Yes.
Right? The artists always in Druidism, the bards sought the Awen.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And the Awen is what we ask for now in Imbolc.
Right.
The Awen is the great awakening.
Right.
Right. So it's funny. I don't consider myself a poet, but every once in a while, all of a sudden, blam, it comes right through me.
Right.
And I have no idea how it showed up,
Yeah.
and I'm not a poet. And I just wrote a poem in 30 seconds. What just happened? And you can feel it. It just moves like lightning alive through you and out on the other end. And you're standing on the other end and you go, I was just a vessel. I have no idea what just occurred. And art just happened.
Yeah.
And the Awen just birthed a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Right? And we have to be careful not to judge any of that.
Right.
What comes out is between you and the gods. And let it happen.
Yeah.
Right? So, we always talk about what can you do for yourself? How can you celebrate this on your own during these things? First of all, light a candle.
Yeah.
And look at that candle.
I love candle gazing.
Sit there, do a little fire scrying. Just that candle is a representative of the awakening. It's not a bonfire.
Yeah.
It is the great stirring.
Off flame.
And just off flame, however you want to call it, and sit there and think about or just be, right? See what stirs. What is new? What is just beginning through you? And if you want to really go for it, I love doing this. I do this in my big rituals where you get a bowl or a plate or cup, I don't care, right? And put a tea light, fill it with water, and put a tea light in it and shove that in the freezer.
Okay.
Ice it down.
Yeah.
So when you light it on Imbolc, it's going to melt. Harky waterfalls. Melt.
That's beautiful.
Well, look at the flame there.
Yeah.
Out of the waters of the cauldron of the mother comes the flame of life.
Wow.
And you can do that with just floating water, but this is spring here.
Yeah.
We're cold, and this is magic to me. Hark, ye waterfalls, melt, ye frozen winter walls. right? And that is a quote from because I'm a musical theater gal from way back when.
Yes, you are.
That was from the musical Secret Garden way back when.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
And the song that one of the characters sings about spring, that line is in it.
Nice.
And I've always listened to that song and I'm like, God, it's a giant invocation. This is amazing. So when you light that candle in the frozen water, it's gonna melt.
Yeah.
And meditating on that, I love it. I just love it.
That's beautiful.
So that's something that you can definitely do.
Yeah.
Read some poetry. Do a little fire and ice.
Yeah.
A little fire and water. A little candle meditation on that day. It's very simple. And also, I like, take a look, get outside. Always see what you can do about getting outside. And take a look at what's stirring. Something is stirring. The birds are singing differently now already.
Right.
We're seeing different things track. Things are budding. Things are out here. We're lucky. In the Pacific Northwest, this stuff comes earlier than the East Coast, where I used to be from. Right now, the East Coast is looking at us going, oh, you spoiled biddies. Yeah. Right? But, biddy is an old term for Brigid.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, old biddy.
Oh,
yeah.
my God.
Well, because so some of the beautiful, and believe me, we could sit here and do an entire episode on Brigid alone, right? But some of the lovely things that were done to celebrate her, there was a corn dolly that was made by the maidens that would take, the young women dressed in white would take this corn dolly around to all the homes. Right?
Okay.
And in some traditions, it would be old biddy knocking at the door. And they would, give, because it's a dairy festival, they'd do honey cakes and cheese and dairy and all these kinds of things, which are great. But there's also this, one of the beautiful kind of myths around it is the kayak is an Irish crone hag. Goddess,
okay.
Right? And at this time, there are two different versions of it. This is the one that I kind of like. But the kayak would go to the holy well at Imbolc. And by having the waters put on her, she transformed into Brigid, who walked the land.
Interesting.
Right? So old biddy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We have this transforming, which we see a lot of crone into maiden into mother, into crone into maiden into mother. And that's what Brigid is. She's all three, right?
Okay.
There's also one of the other stories is that the kayak hid away Brigid, like in her cave. I'm not sure if it was a cave, but it was the kayak's son that came to save Brigid.
Okay.
So we have also this combination of the goddess lures the god out and into this land again.
Yeah.
Right? And to find her, he would come because she's his ever living partner for all eternity through God, goddess, and maiden mother crone and all of that. So when she comes out, when the goddess comes out into the land, it is because she's here that the young sun god comes and follows.
Ah, wow.
So it's, some pretty cool shit.
That's great.
To take a look at.
Yeah.
But that's where that old biddy, because, the koyak turns into Brigid.
Yeah.
There's some brilliant, brilliant things.
That's beautiful. The etymology of just things is just so beautiful. Because I've heard old biddy. I thought old biddy was probably like from the 50s. I thought it was just like, oh, my grandma used to say that. No, my grandma's told me that. To say that.
your European Celtic grandma, whoever that is. But then how it spread into something else. But that's a lot of those things, and it's hard because I am Irish, so it's super easy for me to just roll into doing these festivals by going, it's Imbolc, hello, Brigid, right? But what I try very hard to do is, I I think it's as important that there is the goddess and the god in all of these, right? For me, anyway. And that it's whatever goddess of the protectress of fires and water and spring and all that stuff, whatever floats your boat, grand. But to me, it is the goddess that brings the light back. And however you want to look at that, have fun.
There you go. That's beautiful. Yeah. With you'd mentioned initiations earlier. What are some of the initiations? Because I mean, that's it, for me in my journey. I've actually got a couple books I'm reading through right now. That's one of the things that I think is not just me. It's commonly talked about, but it's kind of missing in this world right now is the initiations between stages of life and getting us ready to get to that next stage and appreciating the stage we were at, but embracing that next stage that we're going towards. Yeah. So what are some of those initiations that kind of get us ready for Imbolc?
Well, so when I say initiations, it was more of when you were committing yourself to priest or priestesshood.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's also in the Wiccan tradition, there are 3 degrees.
Okay.
First, second, and third. And at those were the times where you would take your vows. Okay. So in most traditions, you would have been studying for a year and a day.
Gotcha.
And then on Imbolc, you have your initiation.
Okay.
Right? At least that's in Wicca. In other places, like, not everybody does it that way, but it is something that I love. That's how and you renew your vows on that day,
all right.
However you want to do it. And for some people, engagements happen on Imbolc.
Yeah.
It's the engagement, it's the stirring, it's not the wedding.
Not the wedding itself, but
it's the engagement.
Initiation
It's the initiation, right?
Yes.
Which I love, and I think initiations are very, very important. Like now, I am in the process finally of developing and creating my initiation because I'm officially a crone. I have not bled for 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years soon.
Okay.
So officially, I am now
stepped over that line.
That's a crone.
Okay.
Right? So it is one of those places that I feel that is massively important to acknowledge and initiate.
Right.
For women.
Yes.
It's really important because older women in this society are basically looked at as useless.
Yes. It's 100%. I'm so sick of that.
Whether it is, wherever these points of transition for us as humans,
right.
Graduation is an initiation, right? Mm-hmm. It's a big one for a lot of people. And motherhood for the first time for those who go through that route.
Right.
Puberty for both boys and girls.
Right.
There are all these things that should be marked.
And celebrated.
Right? In some way. And these are big, big, big transitions. The type that I think of initiation at Imbolc is the initiations of your connection to spirituality. At least that's how I look at it. It can be anything you really want. But for me, it is definitely about your commitment to your gods, to your processes of spirituality and what that is for you.
Yeah.
That's what it is a little bit more for me.
Yeah. I'm always happy to hear, especially this time right now, when people embrace the stages of that archetypical life that we walk towards. And in my opinion, and I've had conversations with multiple people on this show about this, but so I'm 42. My parents, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and in that generations, we had countless anti-aging creams, anti-aging serums, work out, don't feel old, feel young, blah, blah, blah. Everything to get us away from eldership, more or less. And so what I'm seeing, and this is shared by others, is that there's this almost this ignorance that's sweeping across the preceding generations because that information isn't being passed down. Because if we're not embracing the age and the stage of our life, then how can we embrace the wisdom, the knowledge, and the duty that goes with that? So if I never embrace my sageness when I get to that, then I can't really fully embrace the wisdom that goes with that, so I can impart that to the next generation that's coming up. So we have this group of peoples that are starved of information because their parents refuse to reach their archetypical kind of understanding of where they need to be. And so one of my goals right now in life is to be okay with getting older every day and embrace it and love it and know that that I have information that I've gained over the years that might be applicable to somebody that's coming up behind me, maybe somebody in front of me, who knows, but embracing that stage so that we can be ready to impart that wisdom to the next generation, so then they can feel the setup so that they can work towards their sage and croneship and impart towards their generations below them, right? And then we get back to that passing of wisdom and knowledge instead of this like, I'm 80 years old and I feel 30. No, you don't. No, not at all. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Good for you, right? Feel 30. That's awesome. But like, also understand that you're an 80-year-old person that has tons of wisdom that if you embrace your 80-year-old personness, then all that wisdom can be imparted down.
And there's the transition of the Koyach into Brigid.
Okay.
You carry
Get the cycle.
the wisdom of the Koyach into the virgin stage of, or the maiden stage of Brigid.
Right.
She's always, and that's what I love about the concepts of triple goddesses. They're always on a spiral. It's always the constant. And so that you know you're always going to be a part of these no matter what. Right? Where the wisdom of one generation comes into the beginnings of another, and they take that information and birth it into something that is that plus something else. And they take that into the wisdom of what their koilach becomes. And then it just keeps continuing and continuing and continuing. So for me, to honor and worship the triple goddess is to honor that process for all of us.
Yeah. It kind of goes to the idea of the yes and, right? It's like, yes, that worked, and now we're going to grow off that and build so the next generation can say yes, and now this, because we've got some different information and we've got some different knowings because you've set that up to give us the freedom to see the knowing, and then we'll take that and impart that, and then that next generation, yes and, right? And this is a beautiful process. You know, it's like the yugas of the Hindu lore. Right? Every yuga is 26,590 years, I think it is. And there's 4 yugas, and right now we're fabled to be in the Kali Yuga, which is the yuga of ignorance. And we're cresting towards the back end of that yuga. And then right around the corner is the yuga of everything making sense, right? Because the yuga of ignorance is right before the yuga of everything saying, hey, now we're going back to everybody being gods and goddesses and understanding their divinity and understanding how they're magical creatures. We can create, we can destroy, but we know it. It's not something that's surprising to us. And then through that, we start to get ignorant again, right? And then there we go. You know?
And the thing, we have this really horrible negative connotation around the concept of ignorance, right? And that is where... you need to not know.
Yeah.
You need to not know.
Yeah.
In order to progress.
There
are so many things that you wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. Like we get into issues with this in initiatory situations.
Okay.
In groups that deal with initiation. And I'm going to get set on fire for this. Secrecy is important. It's not about withholding information for you because you don't deserve it, or have my power over you, or blah, 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 blah. You take away the ooh-ah factor, right? Which is a dramatist as an ex-theater person. Don't take my ooh-ah away.
That's why I'm here.
Then catharsis is missed. You skip catharsis. You also, if everybody knows everything before they walk in, you take away the ability for somebody to, for lack of a better phrase, grow a pair in the unknown.
Right.
You have to face the unknown and the fear in order to really find out what you're made of and what you do in spite of that fear. And that only occurs when you don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a control issue. When you're like, no, I need to know everything. And you'd be amazed when it comes to initiations, people want it, but they want to know everything about it. And I look back and I'm like, nope. And they get angry and afraid. And in the back of my head, I go, oh my God, I'm a crone. Yeah. Because I'm smiling in my mind going, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to right now.
God, I love that.
Isn't this interesting? I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really interesting. So I believe that secrecy and ignorance in certain situations is key to development.
Well, I think, that's beautiful. I mean, there's an idea that, we're all put here to figure something out, right? Our human existence is to, figure out life, and we live from all different aspects of life and blah, blah, blah. So there needs to be ignorance, because if we were birthed back into this world with the ideas and the understandings that we might have as spiritual beings, then it'd be like, hey, what, cool. I'm in this world. Yeah, that's an emotion. Got it. Understood. Right. But we have to find the ignorance. We have to be ignorant and learn it ourselves. Have that healthy kind of like understanding of like, why does this do this the way it does? Why does this person feel like that when I talk to him like that? Why does this person look at me like that when I talk to him like that? Like if we just knew everything, there'd be no lessons to learn. So that ignorance is like a layer of necessity. Like we got to fight through that. And sometimes we live in our ignorance and it's like, I'm just going to be ignorant. And that's the journey too. But it's that understanding of your ignorance, and then the question of like, well, how can I not be ignorant? What can I do to add information and add value to this stuff that's coming in? There you go. Oh, now you're curious. Oh, that's fun. All right, let's layer on that, and it's beautiful, right? Because if we just knew everything, I got the word remember tattooed on my fingers, like, because we're forgetful. Like I forget shit all the time, right? Yeah. Whether it's like where I put my keys or like how to get myself out of depression, right? Anything in between, I forget.
And then the funny thing is knowing where you are in that process, when we forget, and part of the point is, to forget in order to remember in a different way. But what I like is once I know these 8 posts, these signposts in a year, right? You can apply wherever you are in your life to one of those seasonal energies, whether you're actually in the seasonal energy or not. Because people who grieve or going through grief are in Samhain for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's like, right, I'm in Samhain. Let's not pretend it's summer solstice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like in a project development, oh my God, I'm in Imbolc. I'm in Imbolc. It's not time to do. It's not. It's time to, instead of brainstorm, I like calling it, especially when it's in Imbolc, I like spirit storming instead.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of brainstorming, I like spirit storming. But it's time to spirit storm. This is more about where is the inspiration coming and how do I let that sit?
Yeah.
It's having an awareness of what actually is instead of pretending that you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it also lets you know no matter how long that phase lasts, it will change. It will.
Yeah.
There is nothing on the planet than coming out of grieving times into an Imbolc phase. You just sit there in tears going, it's starting. The awakening is starting.
Yeah.
So I think these signposts also help us kind of be realistic in different ways.
Okay.
And supported in our own personal processes.
Yeah. So like taking the idea of these 8 pillars, these 8 signposts like you talk about, and yes, they lay over our calendar year, but they can also lay over our humanity. And depending on where I'm at in my human experience of whatever emotional thing I'm going through, it might be, like you said, it might be July, but I've had somebody pass and now I'm in Samhain, right? And layering that on top of your humanity and then saying, okay, cool. So now we're going to be in Samhain for a little while. What's next? Yule, we start to see the light. It might be dim, it might be dark, but there's going to be light eventually. And then guess what? Something's going to start growing.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. You're going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Fuck, I love that.
Yeah, and that's why, like, when you're stuck in one phase, because I know the wheel, when I'm stuck in one phase, the wheel ever turns. I know this. I know what the next phase is.
Yeah.
I have not seen people jump from Samhain to solstice, summer solstice.
Yeah.
You go through all the others to get there.
Right.
These aren't ones that you can jump out of. It happens in an order, in a cycle.
Appreciate the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, it's there for a reason. Wow. Oh, man. All right. Oh, man. Thank you. That was a good the little tangent there. I love that. Okay, so we've gone over some of the versions of initiations that we talked about. You clarified that, which is beautiful. Some of the traditions that we have. So any other kind of customs or rituals that are noteworthy to talk about for Imbolc, or maybe how to get ready for the next phase of what's after Imbolc?
Yeah, so some of the other customs, because of Brigid, is blessing your home and your hearth.
Okay.
Inviting those goddesses of the light into your home, so making a Brigid cross, you can look that up online. That cross actually, it doesn't look like a Christian cross. It looks more like a solar sun wheel.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was made out of rushes. And it is a symbol of Brigid. And mine, I think I have so many Brigid crosses. It's crazy. But there is one that my aunt, who is a Catholic nun, when she went to Ireland, brought me back. When I went to Ireland, I brought one back.
Wow.
Literally, I have the one that when I went to Ireland for my 50th birthday, I went to Solas Brigid, and I said, I would love to be able to pick up a Brigid cross. She goes, we have one from the last ritual. Would you like it? I was like,
wow.
I'm sorry. What? Yes, I would.
I'm in the right place. Clearly, I'm in the right place.
Thank you very much. But it sits over your doorway because she protects the entrance in between and out, like at there. The Breed's bed was known where you'd take the corn dolly, and the women, the childbirthing women, would call Brigid in, right? Who, as that corn dolly, you'd put it in a bed of some, like a little, whatever you want to make a little bed, or it's almost like a child's rocker almost.
Okay.
But you'd put that in there, and that's the bride bed, and you would throw like some nuts or some acorns in there as the fertility symbol that would draw the god into it, which I love in every way. So I love the how literal we can get as ceremonialists, as ritualists. And to me, it's like, right, that's exactly what you would do.
Right.
Why wouldn't you do that? Who's got some nuts?
It's so funny because some of these things, it's like I can draw the line eventually, like, oh, I can see where that's coming from. But then there's some that's just like, no, that just makes sense.
Yes.
Like, good for you. There's a little comedy in there too.
That's to me that's a big thing, because I think a lot of the time in paganism there is incredible openness towards sexuality, because it is a part of life.
Yeah.
It is a huge part of life, and the expression of that is glorious. And so you will always find humor around the fertility sexual reference in pagan groups. We're all like,
right.
Yes, who's got the nuts?
Yeah.
It's like, there it goes, which makes me laugh in different ways. But like I said, candles, that's a biggie. I'm trying to think, I think we've hit almost all of the types of traditions that I do. Red and white are big. Okay. White is that purity of the light coming back, but it's also what happens with the shift over into maiden. The white, because in Ireland, they would dress in white. White candles going from... So white is a big, but I also like adding red in there. Because red is also the Sun King coming in there. So red and white themes are great. Dairy themes. I like leaving out a little milk and honey from the first to the second. Yeah. A little milk and honey for the spirits to invite Brigid in. Yeah. All that kind of thing.
And is the milk you mentioned? It's a ewe festival, right?
Well, it's basically, it was in agricultural times. It was the lambing.
The
it was the
lambing,
time
that's
of
right.
lambing, right?
And so is that like the dairy kind of wrapped up in
the dairy is in the milk because
Yeah.
as they gave birth and the ewes were lactating, there was a lot more milk available. And I believe was it Scottish or Norse? I can't remember which one, but they would make at this time. It was like it was like apples and mead and milk and honey and all of it into one thing. That was like the drink for the evening. I have to find a recipe for that because I've been dying to make that.
That sounds really good, yeah.
I've been dying to make that. So yeah, dairy is a bit. So, even leaving out a bit of cheese,
Yeah.
because you went without.
Right.
Until when you saw the lactation, you're like, oh my God, milk and cheese.
Yes, it's back. Oh my
Yes.
God.
Oh my goddess. That's not even an oh my God. It is oh my goddess.
There you
It's
go.
a lactating thing. So yes, this is oh my goddess, milk and cheese. Bring it on.
God.
So yeah, and then the other thing that I like about the fire and ice candle kind of thing, when you do that, when you blow it out, imagine that energy just going out across the earth and across the world, the way the goddesses of spring at this time walk across the planet in order to do that.
Wow.
So there's that.
That's beautiful.
I think I'm trying to think. Is there anything else? No. I feel like I've hit everything.
I
think.
feel very, very informed. Now, also poetry, right?
Yes.
And there was a poem that you wanted to read.
Yes.
And so you mind just kind of setting us up with this and where it's coming from and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is, when I found this poem, I have been reading it in ritual and group ritual ever since. It is one of my favorite poems for this time of year, and it was written by Caroline Mellor. I believe that's how you pronounce her last name.
Okay.
And so just to close this and wrap this up with a gift of someone's creativity to Brigid. And it's called I'm the Dream of Awakening. Okay, so I am the dream of awakening. I am the returning of the light. I am the tough green shoot pushing up through the paved stones. I am the first kiss of sunlight on the unfurling petals of the snowdrop. I am the wind which whispers the gentle pull of home to the migratory bird. I am the drop of ice melting on the mountains with its great dream of the ocean. I am the sap rising in the blossom tree just before it reveals its sticky buds to the sky. I am the riotous celebration humming away beneath the earth's mantle of frozen sleep. I am the rousing of the bee from its winter slumber and the soft pad of the mother wolf's paw on the snow as she prepares to birth her pups. I am hope, potential, rebirth, and promise. I am the kindling breath which transforms the flicker of inspiration in your creative core into a blazing torch. Give me the silent crescent moon rising over the sea, and I will build you a bridge of silver light so you can walk up and lie in it. Give me the frost-hardened wilderness, and I will breathe radiant green life over it. Give me the healer, the writer, the craftsperson, and the storyteller, and I will replenish her essence and make her new again. I am Brigid, Bast, Inanna, and Hestia. I am the fierce protectress of the sacred fire. Tonight, I bestow my gifts of power and courage at the hearth of your soul. Power to step out of the shadows of self-doubt and negativity, which have held you in darkness for too long. Power to shed all that which no longer serves you, and courage to clear your heart and mind for the dawn that awaits you. I am time to honor your unique gifts for their true worth and to protect and nurture your creative self as you would a child. I am the deep longing of the spirit which refuses to be consumed by a narrative of fear and chooses instead to place itself vivaciously on the side of love. I am the stirring in your belly which knows exactly what you are capable of, and that it's time the world found out. I am the fire within which will not be contained any longer. I am the quickening. I am the serpent uncoiling. I am Imbolc. I am the dream of awakening.
Wow. That was fantastic. I could just see life happening in my head. I had my eyes closed while you were reading that. And that was beautiful. And it's interesting because the first part, it was like gentle and like, hey, we're happening. Things are changing. And then the end, it's like, I am doing shit. This is happening. We're not getting past it. This is what's up. And it's like, man, you read that beautifully. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
That, that does paint a beautiful picture in my head about what we've just talked about. And I think that really does encompass the energy of Imbolc. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. That was beautiful.
See now? It's starting.
Well, Danica, you are the best. Thank you again for sharing this knowledge and this wisdom. Gonna have you back soon.
Oh yeah, we'll be back for spring equinox.
Yep, spring equinox and right around the corner.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out for this, and we have done, just a reminder, Samhain and Yule. So go check those episodes out. And we also did a episode with Danica about a year and a half ago about just you as a human being and what you do and all the badass things of your wiccanry and your
your wickedry,
and your herbalism and just like the vast amounts of knowledge that you have. So thank you always for being here, and I really appreciate you.
My pleasure, Adam. You too.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining Danica and I. Please check out the show notes for links to get in touch with Danica or myself. Also, please share, like, and subscribe to the podcast. Help us support it. Obeisance and love. We'll see y'all next time.